deceive the teddy bear here to play. If you don't come play with.
Welcome to Frightened Female. This is Crystal. Before I get to today's true scary stories, I wanted to tell you about a haunted house attraction that I went to in Phoenix called the 13th Floor. Now, this was rated amongst the scariest haunted houses, not in just the state of Arizona, in the entire nation. And let me tell you, you guys, it lived up to its word. This was undoubtedly the most freakish event that I'd ever been to. And this wasn't your run-of-the-mill carnival-style haunted house where someone jumps out at you and goes, rah! No, This was so different and so realistic. You couldn't tell fact from fiction. That's how immersed we were. Now, this was a 65,000 square foot venue, and it took us about 40 minutes to walk through. And the actors were so good, and the different themed rooms, so realistic. You felt as if you were actually involved in something real. Like walking through an abandoned home, and the characters were just right in your face. This guy that you see right here would not stop scaring me in the waiting line. And I was screaming, they're not supposed to touch you. But he was touching everyone, like running his fingers through, your hair and the back of your neck. I was screaming my head off. But it was so fun. Just to give you an example of the set on the inside, here's an idea. It literally was like walking through a Hollywood movie set. And I'm not kidding. Very scarily designed. One of the themed parts of it was the zombie apocalypse, as they called it. As you see here, where they built an actual street and had broken down cars that zombies would crawl out of at you and then chase you down the street through the abandoned town. I mean, these weren't tiny hallways that everybody's sandwiched in and it's all dark, you can't see what's going on. It's like you were part of a movie set. It was so cool. Again, hands down, scariest thing I've ever gone to. Unfortunately, they didn't allow any camera, any phones. We had to leave ours in the car just because we didn't want to drop it. They said the two things they find most at the end of the haunted house when they're cleaning up is cell phones and flip-flops. But I love Halloween so much. It's getting so close. Just thought I'd share that with you guys. Oh, so today's story submission that I received got me thinking about a story that happened to my husband. It sparked something that happened to him back in Hawaii, and it's so weird because we were just talking about this story. I'm going to read you something on what many of you have never heard of. It's the Hawaiian legend of the Night Marchers. It reads as follows. Now, this is in reference to the Hawaiian Islands. It says, don't make eye contact with the night marchers. So it says, be careful if you plan on doing any night hikes or midnight beach strolls. The night marchers are ghosts of ancient Hawaiian warriors, and they're said to roam the islands at night, visiting old battlefields and sacred sites. If you hear chanting, drums, or marching, or if you see torches, your best bet is to run indoors or to lie quietly on your stomach. If you make eye contact with the night marchers, you'll die and be forced to march with them for all eternity. If you happen to have an ancestor marching, however, no one in the procession can harm you. So yeah, and that's just one of the things. So when my husband told me his story, because I had never heard of the night marchers, there's also another legend of the Menahunis, which maybe I'll do a video on. That led me to my husband's true scary story and what he experienced. So he lived in Hana, Hawaii, on the island of Maui. Now, this picture that you see here was the exact street that he lived on, along with many of his friends for years that were close neighbors, and they were always fishing, having get-togethers at each other's houses. But he told me one particular night, he was at his buddy's house down the street, having a nighttime cookout, and he said it was around 8 o'clock p.m., and they were barbecuing. At this time, it was pretty much pitch black outside, except for the one street lamp across the road that was shining down on some tall grass that lined the way. He said that they were standing on the porch looking out. No music was playing, just talking. When all of a sudden, they heard the tribal noises coming from a distance. He said they looked up and said they saw the tall grass start to sway and then split down the middle as if someone or something was marching through the brush. His friend immediately knew what it was and told everyone to look away and get inside the house. It was the night marchers. My husband had never heard of them up until that night. So after a while, they did return back outside once the coast was clear. But he said it was the craziest paranormal thing that he'd ever witnessed. What if they hadn't have gone inside the house? Now, Hawaii has so many spiritual beliefs and a lot of folklore, spooky stuff. Again, the night marchers is just the tip of the iceberg. So the next true scary story that was submitted to me by Connor, and thank you so much, Connor, because you inspired me to share my husband's story. It involves a spiritual curse that is known by many Hawaiians, but not so much by the uninformed visitors that go there. With that, let's begin. The summer after college, me and two of my friends took a guy's trip to Hawaii. We stayed 7 nights on the Big Island and had the time of our lives. We went parasailing, hung out on the beach looking to pick up on girls, hit the nightclubs, and did a lot of nature exploring. And I was shocked that some parts of the island looked like a black desert, which caught me by surprise. I was expecting palm trees and flowers everywhere, but I later found out it was lava flats. And it amazed me so much that I didn't leave without taking a few rocks and sticking them in my backpack. Well, we hated it when we had to fly home. None of us wanted the trip to end. We vowed to do the same thing the very next year. So once home on the mainland, I had unpacked my things and I took my black lava rocks and placed them in a dish on my coffee table as a memento. Collecting rocks was always a hobby of mine. So I went to bed that night, only to wake in the morning, go out in the living room to find the rocks scattered on the floor. And this was bizarre, seeing as how I lived alone in my apartment and I hadn't had anyone over. So I picked them up and placed them back in the dish. I did have a tendency to sleepwalk now and again, so I figured that must have been the reason. I was about a week into being back at work when one particular day, during my lunch break, I got this sharp pain in my stomach, and I grew very ill very fast. I was getting extremely dizzy for no reason, and I had no choice but to tell my boss that I couldn't finish out the rest of the day. So he let me go home, and I grabbed my things, and I was walking outside to get to the parking lot. I was at the top of a set of concrete steps going down when all of a sudden I felt a force violently push me from behind and throw me down the stairs, which caused me to twist and snap my right leg. No one was around. I let out a loud cry of pain. About a minute went by of me lying there, grasping onto my leg tightly, before another coworker eventually saw me in passing. They called the ambulance, and I was taken to the nearest hospital. To my misfortune, I had indeed broken the lower portion of my leg. So as I lied in my hospital bed, feeling more awful now that I had an injury, what had pushed me down those steps? I thought. I felt that maybe at the time I may have been hallucinating based on my dizziness, but the force felt very strong and real, and it was so weird. I stayed overnight in the hospital. A good female friend of mine came to pick me up the next day, along with another buddy, who then drove my car home from my work job. We got back to the apartment. They pretty much carried me inside and helped me to the couch. My male friend said that he'd stay over the night just to make sure I was okay or that I needed any help. My female friend noticed the lava rocks that were in the dish on the coffee table. "These are cool," she said. "Where'd you get them?" I told her, "Oh, I brought them back from the Big Island. They're lava rocks. I thought they'd look neat in here." She shook her head and stared at me with wide eyes. "Oh, no, Connor. That was a stupid move. I can't believe you didn't know." "Know what?" I asked, puzzled. "You cannot bring back black rocks from Hawaii. They are sacred to the land, and they become cursed if you take them back home. I thought everybody knew that. If I were you, I would ship them back as soon as possible." So first off, I didn't believe her. What? A curse? Ship them back? To where? Just back to the islands. Hell, send them back to the hotel that you stayed at, she said. Well, I eventually brushed it off. I didn't believe in those types of things. I did sleep well that night due to the medication I was given from the hospital. My friend stayed on the couch. After using my crutches to creep my way into the kitchen the next morning, my friend woke soon after and said, "Dude, I did not do this," as he pointed to the ground, where yet again the black lava rocks were lying scattered on the floor. I just looked down at the cast on my leg. For the rocks to move by themselves again, yeah, maybe there was a curse. So we hopped on the laptop to do some research, and indeed, there was a curse attached to the rock, known as the Pele curse. My friend wasn't lying. It got me thinking about the force that shoved me down those steps. And my sudden sickness at work that day? Well, maybe I should send them back, I said to him. We had even found an address of the same Hawaiian national park that I took the rocks from. Man, I hate to send them back, but it's not worth the risk. So my friend said that he'd take them to the post office for me and mail them out. So I had several manila envelopes handy, and we packed them along with an apology note stating that we were returning the rocks. The many stories of the curse online had me a bit rattled. My friend grabbed the envelope and said that he'd cover the shipping cost, no worries, and that he'd be back with breakfast for us both after dropping the package off at the post office. So he was gone for about 45 minutes as I sat on the couch surfing through the channels on the TV. when my friend arrived back to my place. He walked in silent, and he set a McDonald's bag down on the coffee table, and then sat down in the recliner, looking white as a ghost. "What's wrong, man?" I said with concern. He looked at me and said, "I almost just died, Connor." So I sat up as best as I could. "What happened?" I could see the sweat on his face. "Dude, I was taking the back street here from town after mailing out the package and getting food because it was a quicker route, and some asshole in a blue beat-up car was barreling head-on toward me. I had no shoulder to get off on. It happened so fast, I gripped the wheel and prepared for the impact. Then right at the last second, not even 15 feet away, he suddenly swerved back into his lane. I almost died. I thought I was gonna die." My friend eventually calmed down, but to this day, I still wonder, what if we hadn't have taken the rocks to the post office? Maybe the Pele curse was trying to send us a final message. Don't you ever take from the Hawaiian land again. Let's just say I didn't go the following year. Jeez, Connor. It's funny. I had heard about the rock curse. I didn't know that it was entitled the Pele curse. So I myself, you made me do some research, and I guess Pele is the goddess of the volcano. And if you're said to take black lava rocks, then that means you're taking a part of her body. It's just like something that she owns. And that's where the curse came from. I also read some other things that it was a security guard that I guess put the curse on the land because they were tired at the national park, tired of people, smuggling rocks out of there. So if they were to tell enough people there were a curse, then they would stop doing it. But, and then I started looking at pictures online of how many people are sending back not only rocks, but sand. I guess sand is supposed to be sacred too. Bottom line, if you go to Hawaii, just appreciate the land. Don't take it home with you. Folks, thank you so much for subscribing, liking my videos. Please leave comments below on your opinions if you've ever experienced something like this. Most importantly, please be safe, be aware of your surroundings, and remember to always lock your door. Scare you later.